Good morning, world. My name is Barry Huntsberger, and I'm from the United States. This is my team. From the United States and Brazil, we have Zula Oliveira. From the United States, we have Sean Bell, Amadou Zun, Ella Blanco. From Canada, we have Louis Conway. And from the Congo, we have Marius Barindwa. So together, we are the NGO Empower Africa, which is short for Energy Matrix Africa. And we are going to electrify Africa. What you see here is on the left, there is where we are, and on the right is where we want to be. We want to go from foreign ownership and capital flight to majority of Africa owned. We want to have the less vulnerable energy systems to a more resilient and adaptive energy matrix, transboundary cooperations set up. We want to go from lack of community control to future community-led energy improvements so they keep improving along the way. Ella, you are.
Hello, I'm Ella. So how do we fix this? Our plan, like Barry says, is to form a nonprofit organization called Empower Africa that works alongside the African Union. Our organization's focus is on instigating energy sharing and creating energy hubs in local empowered communities. Our main goal is to help small developed communities become self-sufficient with their electricity needs through solar, wind, and hydro energy. Each hub is connected to the grid where energy can be distributed as needed. This solution focuses on Sustainable Development Goals 7, 11, 12, and 17. Before we continue, let's define hubs and empowered communities. Next slide, please. Hubs are the physical energy storage or collection and the community's connection to the grid. Hubs can connect to other hubs through the grids, which allows them not only to collect and store energy, but to send and receive it as well. Empowered communities are considered communities that not only have a hub, but are also connected to the grid and are self-sufficient. On the next slide, we have a diagram of how we envision our hubs working. You can see that the power energy generators, the wind turbines, solar panels, and hydro power send energy to the hub, the battery in this visual representation, which relays it back to the community. As can be seen, the hubs share energy as needed. In the next slide, you can see that when one hub is low on energy, the right one, other hubs can feed it electricity to ensure that everyone has enough power. I'm going to pass it on to Sean.
Sorry, my headphones disconnected there for a second. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So what our game plan is we're going to introduce our Empowered Africa team to the local community. It's important for us to then gain trust with the community and clearly and openly talk with them about what our goals are and how we're going to execute this. We're going to evaluate the area's electrical potential, whether that's solar panels, hydro, whatever they can produce, build the infrastructure like wells, farmland, and human essentials, and start generating electricity through the communication and through the community, and encourage equality and education. We're going to then connect them to the microgrid once they're self-sustaining. Our game plan for the grid is establish power generating through these communities, construct these hubs and in each local energy, employ engineers from the African Union to educate and care for hubs, establish communication with communities and find a fair percentage that they're willing of their surplus energy that they're willing to send us. Store the power and distribute energy as needed, sell whatever the hubs cannot store anymore, and put 100% of these profits back into the community and back into the grid, self-sustaining with the safety net. I'm going to pass it off to Ahmad.
So where are we going to start? Well, we picked the Caprivi strip, and this would just be our starting point. And then after we succeed, we will expand our project to benefit all of Africa. And for the Caprivi strip, this is a panhandle in Namibia that borders 3 other countries, which are Angola, Botswana, and Zambia. And the geography of the panhandle makes it ideal for transboundary communication. And also the fact that there are currently stable relations between these four nations means that it will be easier to build trust between communities across their boundaries. Next slide. Yeah. And so why is this a good location for our solutions? Well, roughly 40% of Namibia's population does not have power, so success here will show effectiveness of our solutions. There's also a lot of solar and wind potential, and also because of the accessibility of the Zambezi River, there's also a lot of hydropower potential. And again, the location of the Caprivi Strip makes it a possible focal point for the countries, and these immense potential can be distributed easily. And so what makes this place a safer place to begin? Well, in the greater Africa, there's a large scale of a lack of trust, both domestically and internationally, and this is contributed to by war and conflict. And also due to the current power structure, there is weak infrastructure. And now I'm going to pass it off to Zula.
Hi, I'm Zula Oliveira. So the main resources we want to provide are collaboration and communication between different regions. We plan to have mediators in each hub that can facilitate the communication between the different areas in order to prevent conflict. And we also plan to work with different environmental companies and organizations to teach the locals how to care for their own ecosystem. And we'll provide the tools for them to do so they can invest back into their environment. Next slide, please. The technology we plan to have to provide electricity are wind turbines, solar panels, and river-based hydropower. We chose these energy forms not only because of the versatility, but because we want diversity in energy sources. So for example, if one hub is lacking, another hub can step in. And we want to have, because we have water, sun, and hydro as our options, if one area is without electricity, regardless of weather, we can make sure everyone has power.
All right, I'm going to pick it back up. So here's what our timeline looks like. 6 months from now, we want to start working with communities to become self-sufficient. We want the first few empowered communities to have be evaluated for what process or what electricity they can produce. Communities in the program, we want to see a rise in education, equality, and standard of living. 5 years from now, we want to have a strong relationship between our hubs, open communication, electricity sharing. Our grid should have a strong energy mix by now, and is constantly expanding. We should see more empowerment to women. Education is on the rise. And by then we should be making our first eco-friendly, self-sustaining cities. Our timeline for 10 years, we'll have our energy sharing between communities is happening without borders and throughout most of our neighboring countries. Within our sphere of influence, they should have easy access to water, electricity, food, education. And we're constantly adding new improvements to our energy grid, possibly hydrogen. 10 or 20 years from now, all of Africa has clean electricity. The continent of Africa is leading the world in clean energy. Coal and other fossil fuels have been completely phased out. And I'm going to pass it back off to Ella.
Okay, so let's look at a quick breakdown of the cost. The total solar power cost is $11.6 million per year. The total hydro cost for the power and the storage is $52,500 per river. The total wind cost is $613,000 per year. The total grid cost would be $13.9 million per year. And the total worker/contractor salary is $1.98 million per year. It should be noted that the cost for solar, hydro, and wind is the cost if we were using only that one source of power. That is, if we were only implementing solar power, for example. The actual cost will be less as we are using a mixture of these three energy sources, but we are unable to give exactly how much because it's going to change for each area, and we will be able to determine that once we have conducted our evaluation and see which electricity generator would produce the most for the specific region. Next slide, please. And now the big numbers you are all waiting for. There are 80,000 people living in the Caprivi Strip. For this area, our solution would cost $45.5 million to power the entire Caprivi Strip. When we apply the cost to all of Africa, it comes to a total of 1.1 billion US dollars. This would be funded by African governments, particularly those involved in the project, non-government organizations, nonprofit organizations, banks, and as well as certain foreign investors. On the next slide, you'll see a couple of our sources. And if you have any questions, please let us know. And from all of us at Empower Africa, thank you.
Thank you. Evaluators, is there any comments, suggestions from your end?
Well, sure. This is Kurt. And you won't be surprised to hear me say, okay, prototyping first is how I would start, because I think you need to demonstrate this really works for a community, and that'll really help you, I think, with funding. And the good news is, like with solar, it's a plug and play. There's lots of stuff. Just like in my lecture, be careful, because a lot of those things that you buy, what we call the inverters and the chargers, they're kind of modular, but they're in the long run, they're not maintainable, and they keep being updated to new models. So you kind of have to bake that in, I guess, that you probably have to have some replacement cost, right, at a certain number of years. So, I would start on a community level and worry more about just, one really totally stable source of power available to anybody, and then start to think about connecting right in the community first, if it's not connected, and then start thinking about connecting between as third. So I do a phase thing. So, but it looks really, really solid, and I really like it. And your numbers, actually, they might seem high to people, but I did a quick math, and it's like $500 per person. That's not really expensive at all. So, but of course, once we get into things, often things are more expensive than we think. So that's why I like the idea of prototyping quickly and small, and just seeing how it goes. And then I love your idea of working with the locals and empowering them. So thank you.
Thank you, Kurt.
Well, I would like to say that I'm really impressed by this presentation. And I noticed that in every single slide, almost all the slides included the community. So this is a great thing, that you show, the community is included in every single step of the project.
Thank you. Any more comments from our friends? Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, guys. That was great. And a lot of hard work went into that. So congratulations. And I like how you focused on the one region. I think for me, as you get started, the evaluation piece might be the most important first lever, in the sense of, you zeroed in on a region, but it's going to be down to the specific plot of land, and you'll need some good evaluators to get in there and really identify those best locations out of the gate, right? In other words, you've narrowed in on the Caprese, but then within the Caprese, which spots are going to kind of work the best. So that might be an area to emphasize as you finish up here.
Thank you, Jim.
I would just agree that I agree with everyone else. I think this is a fantastic project. We've actually in the past funded someone who was trying to do something like this. We lost everything. And I think the difference is that you're including the community. And I think that's going to be key to the win. And I guess the only question I would have is, if the government is going to fund your nonprofit, why wouldn't the state just take hold of this project? Do you know what I mean? Why couldn't you be consultants for the state? I don't know. I don't know how it works. It could be political. I'm not really sure, but that's the only question that came to my mind. But good job.
If there's anybody else, please chime in. If not, and I'm going to speak slowly to give anybody else a chance to interrupt me. If not, we can make the transition to the next presentation, which will be on climate change, as I understand the flow. The Changing the Climate of Business is the next group. So if you could move forward, we'll all make that transition.